really uncomfortable in this whole situation. Because, the things that we take for granted, it'd be like, oh, that doesn't really make me afraid or anything like that. Sort of like if I mention jugglers. Someone here may have a fear of jugglers. Because jugglers, tend to be clowns or something like that. People may have fears of clowns, and whatever. Whatever your fear is, if you need to get up, go ahead. No one is ready to judge you on that. So what is fear? We're all familiar with fear. We've all experienced fear in some capacity or other. Probably felt fear, driving over here on the freeway and whatnot. Are they going to slow down fast enough? It's a primal feeling. It's something that we all feel, and we all feel it at kind of I like to call it the hardware interrupt level. You got like the OS level, but underlying all that kind of stuff is the hardware level. And sometimes, you get a little fear thing that pops up and says, hey, CPU, let's remember all that wonderful stuff that you did back in 5th grade. Or let's worry about the thing that's coming up. So you really can't control a hardware interrupt. It's just going to happen.
It's not basketball.
Yeah, it's not something. It's always going to interrupt. You're always going to get that interrupt in there. So, in some ways, we try and run away from that feeling because it's uncomfortable for us. We try and get away from that feeling. Some examples of fear: fear of failure. This is, by the way, this is from Leo Babauta from Zen Habits. He did a whole post on this about fear, and he did a survey of his readership, and he did the top 6 things that people fear. So one of them is the fear of failure. I'm sure some of us can feel that. The fear of being inadequate, fear of rejection, fear of not being prepared, fear of being a fraud, and fear of ridicule. A lot of those are all the same fear, though, when you get right down to it. A lot of it is the fear of just not being good enough. And I know when you're a technological person, that fear manifests itself on a day-to-day basis. Because it's like, I got this machine in front of me. Am I Linus Torvalds? No, I am not Linus Torvalds. Even though some people say I look like Linus Torvalds. I'm not Linus Torvalds in the slightest. So there are things about this machine that I don't really understand. So am I good enough to work with this machine? I hope so. I'd like to think that I'm good enough to work on it. But there may be that fear, if we start, exploring different areas, if somebody told me, make a kernel module in 5 minutes, go, there's a lot of fear there. Although it would probably be more like apathy, like, yeah, whatever. But there's still a little bit of that fear going on. So, can we turn off that fear? Again, it's a hardware interrupt, it's primal. No, we really can't turn that off. So, if we turn it off, we turn off all of our emotions. It's all bundled in that whole thing called being a human being. You turn off happiness, you turn off love, you turn off pretty much everything if you turn off fear. So you have to be more robotic about that type of stuff. I don't think any one of us really wants to be a robot. So what can we do? Well, we can control how we react to our fear. Now we can let it overwhelm us and overtake us. And some people, fear does overtake them. There's little chemical imbalances in that allow people to just, they could have something very small happen, and suddenly there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex breathing over their shoulder, looking at them. So you can try and at least acknowledge that it's there. Big Tyrannosaurus Rex are over my shoulder. Hello. Okay, acknowledge that it's there. And we can acknowledge it in a positive way. We can, instead of trying to run away from it, trying to control it, trying to turn it off, at least say, hey, it's there. So one of the things that I do for myself is I use it as kind of a delta. So in mathematical terms, which I'm going to probably screw up, the delta is you start from point A, and the distance between point A and point B, for me, that is fear. There's that little chasm that says, hey, you start here, you need to go through this in order to get to this end point over here. So what do we do? And I liken it a little to a lighthouse. So whenever the fear light comes on, it's a lighthouse out there. And, what do lighthouses do? Lighthouses tend to light up the shoreline, so they let you know where the land is. So if you're a boat out there in the middle of the ocean or the sea or wherever, and actually probably more the sea, probably wouldn't be the ocean if you're seeing a lighthouse, that'd be weird. Anyways, so you have the shoreline that's over there, and it lets you know where that shoreline is. So it allows you to see where you're going to run aground, where things are going to come up and crash against you. So you see that fear, it's letting you know, hey, here's the lay of the land. Here's the thing that you don't quite understand what it is that you need to do in order to get to where you need to go to do the thing that you want to do. So whenever the fear shows up, it's like, hey, beacon, boom. This is something that you can at least acknowledge the lay of the land. So what do? If you're in fear, boss comes up to you and says, hey, we've got a new project. Okay? You can tense up. What you can do then in that point is you can notice the fear. Hey, I'm in the middle of fear. Boss just came up to me and said, I need you to do a project. Okay, there's that fear. Now what are some of the things that happen when people are in fear? Well, for a lot of us, you tense up. A lot of things tense up. Your stomach muscles tense up. Get ready for that fight or flight reflex. Okay? So notice that it's there. Notice your habitual reaction. So fear tends to be a bit of a habit. You tend to do the same things whenever you're in fear. So start noticing whenever you are having some of that fear. Stay with it. So if you stay with that fear and just let it, notice that it's there. Notice that it is happening. And then stay with it for a little while longer. Just notice that it's there. Stay with it. Lean into it in a sense. And just feel what it feels like. Instead of trying to run away, instead of saying, don't be afraid, because you can't not be afraid. Hardware interrupt's going to happen no matter what. Don't not be afraid. Just notice that it's there. So then you notice the tightness and the contraction. You notice how our perceptions contract. So whenever you are afraid, whenever you're not afraid, you start noticing all sorts of things around you. Whenever you start becoming more afraid, your perceptions narrow down. You start trying to notice the things that are in between you and whatever it is, and you have your perceptions get to this point where you're just noticing the things that are around your little circle as opposed to the outer world. So notice your perceptions are contracting. And notice what's happening in the moment as well. Okay? So, once you've paused for that moment, once you have paused and acknowledged that there is fear in there, one thing that you can do, and this is going to sound really silly, have you ever had tea with someone? Have you ever had tea? Just go out, go over to like Goldfish Tea or something like that, pour a big old pot of tea, invite that fear for tea. Invite that big old Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever sitting over your shoulder and say, you know what? Have some tea. It seems a little ridiculous, but what that does is that gets your mental mind in the framework that you're welcoming it. You don't tell someone, hey, would you like some tea? Never happens that way. Let's go, hey, have some tea. Relax. Okay? So you bring it to tea. Just allow it to just invite it in there. And then you see that moment of you having tea with your fear. Yes, ridiculous, but have that moment with you and that fear in tea and see it as perfect. Okay? When I say it is as perfect, is the situation going to be perfect? No, there's still that gap between you and wherever you need to go. But you are okay in that moment. And that's what I mean by perfect. You are okay in that moment. All right? And then you can think rationally about that fear if you are so inclined. What is the worst thing that can happen to you in that moment? Generally speaking, if you are at work and there is something that is fear, not a whole lot of really bad things are going to happen to you unless there's a lawsuit involved. Okay? So, what's the worst thing that could happen in that moment? And then think about what's the worst thing that could happen in that moment. Generally speaking, the worst thing that can happen is not the thing that will happen. It's usually something a little further on this way. Usually the worst thing for me that has ever happened is life goes on, okay? So that's the thing, is just acknowledge that you have the fear, acknowledge how you feel in that fear, welcome that fear, think, what is the worst thing that can happen at this moment? And then proceed. Lean into it. Lean into that fear. Acknowledge that you've had the fear. Usually the fear will finally go away. Like if you have something, let's say you are introduced with something new, okay? What would happen if you gave it like 10 minutes, 2 minutes, and said, I'm going to do this thing for 2 minutes. Even though I'm afraid of it, I'm going to do it for 2 minutes. What is the worst thing that can happen to you in 2 minutes? Generally speaking, in computers, the worst thing that could happen to you if you do something for 2 minutes is that your computer will blow up. And that you will get, there will be horrible things that happen. Generally speaking though, most things that you do to a computer will not have your computer blow up. You will be able to do the thing. So, do the thing for 2 minutes. The fear will probably go away after that. The hardware interrupt will have said, hey, I got my acknowledgement, I'm good, all right, carry on, sally forth, whatever. Keep doing it. Keep doing it some more. Agree to 10 minutes of it. Agree to 20 minutes of it. Whatever you need to do in order to do that. Just allow yourself that freedom to say, for the next 2 minutes, we're just going to push forward. We're going to keep doing what we need to do. So, with that in mind, hopefully, you will be able to, the next time that you see something that comes in front of you, and you get a little afraid of what's going on, be able to say, hey, I got some tea. Let's do this then. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions? I know it's a little, yes?
So I suppose there are some techniques you've picked up. I mean, like, I would think that practicing through something a few times, to get familiar with it, and studying. And
one of the things that I recommend is meditation. And I know that sounds, yes, as soon as you say meditation, there's two types of folks. It's like either the people who meditate or the people like, meditating. Such a loosey-goosey thing to do. What meditation is in this case is just pausing for a moment and just acknowledging what your feelings are at that particular moment. So if you want to close your eyes for a second, take a few deep breaths, say, okay, here's where the fear is, do that. You don't have to get all, light a candle or anytime your boss comes into your office or anything like that, or start chanting meditation or mantras or whatnot.
It'd be a lot of fun.
It would be fun. I mean, if you, knock yourself out if you want to do that. But if you can just at least give yourself the pause. And that's really the important thing, is just the pause to allow yourself to acknowledge what is out there and what your fear is and whatnot. Yes?
I probably release is exercise.
Exercise can be an excellent release as well. Yeah. If you have the opportunity to do so. I mean, sometimes you're in an office situation and you get up way too many times. People are like, oh, okay, what are they doing? But yeah, at least having an outlet for it can help as well. Yes?
I was noticing what you were talking about sounds where you notice your feelings, what's going on is the technique of mindfulness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big things, is just being aware. And mindfulness tends to get this, it tends to be an overloaded term, and unfortunately a lot of the hucksters have got glommed onto it. But the idea is just notice what your mind is thinking of at that moment without getting too precious about what it is that your mind is doing at that moment. Just be aware. That to me is really important, being able to pull back a little bit and look at yourself from a dispassionate perspective. It's like, okay, what am I going through at this moment? Think of yourself as kind of like the hero of your own movie, in a sense. And it's like, okay, if you were going to write about what the hero of your own movie is thinking about, what would you think? What would you write about at that particular moment? is going through great stress right now while he's answering questions about fear. You know, pull back a little bit from that and say, okay, what is it that I'm feeling in this moment? That is really the important part of this. If you want to narrow it, yeah. If you want to give yourself to, like, what was the name of the actor who played the
third person.
the cowboy in the Big Lebowski? If you want to narrate it that way, you know.
Oh, yeah. Sam Elliott.
Sam Elliott, yeah. If you want to go with the Sam Elliott voice for it, go for it. Whatever floats your boat. Who divides? All right, thank you. Before we get too far out of here, I'd like you to